Yo, what's up, YouTube? This is your boy Alan. Today is Friday, and it's going to be another episode of Alexander Rockstar Clothes on my new YouTube channel. Yeah, we made this channel like 2 to 3 months ago, and we're doing episodes on three subjects: self improvement, clothes, and fashion, which clothes and fashion go together, and then self improvement. Alright, today's episode is going to be episode 3, and it's going to be Kevin Klein versus Tommy Hilfiger. Now, these are two of the world's best premier fashion designers. Both kind of came around the same time. Both of them are legends. Both of them are icons. If you never seen what they look like, you should know that they are fashion designers. And they're fashion designers who will kind of revolutionized the world of fashion when it comes to everything: clothes, perfumes, colognes, sportswear. These guys came around the same time. They're legends, they're icons. They kick ass, they take names. You wore their clothing line. Every time you put on some Tommy Hilfiger, you're wearing nothing but the top of the line, the best of the best. When you put on some Kevin Klein, again, you're putting on the best of the best. Think of these two fashion designers as great artists, just in the world of clothes and fashion. Anyone has wore their clothes. Men, women, young, old, black or white. Everybody has wore their clothing line. Doesn't matter if you was once in high school, college, at work, at the gym, when you first took your girlfriend out to lunch or dinner. When you got your first paycheck and you went to a clothing store, it was either Tommy Hilfiger or Kevin Klein. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you my breakdown of both clothing lines, both fashion designers, who's better. Now, I've had the privilege to wear some Kevin Klein stuff, but it was just the clone. And then when it came to Tommy Hilfiger, I actually did wear some Tommy Hilfiger stuff when I was in junior high going into high school. So we'll break it down. Let's get into this video. All right. Now, Kevin Klein started his company in 1968. And it's called Kevin Klein Institute. Now, at first, he was just a fashion designer. He would just design clothes for women, and then later started designing clothes for men. And then 20 or 25 years later, he decided to add something new to his collection that wasn't there before. He all of a sudden did. He ended up doing what is it? He actually ended up doing Kevin Klein Kids, if you believe it or not. So he did women first, men, and then later kids. And then he added a bunch of stuff in there. Like he started with the jeans, the denim jeans. He did jackets, leather jackets. Like the men would get the hardback jeans because he made one for women, then he made one for men, and then he turned around and made the jackets. And around the 1970s is where he began to get popular, like really popular in the 1970s, but it wasn't until the 1980s, 1990s that he really rise to prominence because now he was really kicking ass and taking names. Because if you look at all those modeling commercials where they have Kevin Klein models, you go to places like New York City, which to me is the nation capital of models. Like if you want to be a male model or a model, that's probably where you would go first, is actually New York. Fashion model, if you're talking about New York, New York. If you bring yourself here to Los Angeles, it's I'm a model transitioning into a movie star. Like you look at somebody like Mark Wahlberg. How do you think he got into the movies? It all started with modeling, and who was he modeling for? Kevin Klein. Kevin Klein started getting, bigger and bigger. Every 10 years, it just got bigger and better, bigger and better, better and bigger, and it was kicking ass and taking names. And the guy was just dominating. It's like Kevin Klein was like the Vince McMahon, but with clothes. Like this guy had became a multi-millionaire and then went from a multi-millionaire to a multi-billionaire. And when you look at his picture, he almost looked like Vince McMahon because he's always wearing business clothes. And this guy started getting models to his line. All of a sudden, he had a fashion line. He had male models, female models, and they were getting into the movies and the television shows. and they were promoting the name Kevin Klein. At that time, I wanted to wear some Kevin Klein clothes, but I was still technically junior high and high school, and I didn't have no money. So one time I saw my mom had some Kevin Klein, and I tried to wear her jacket, and my mom looked at me like, "What are you doing? It doesn't fit you." I'm like, "It's Kevin Klein. It's the shit." "Alex, don't be saying that." I'm like, "What? Kevin Klein's the shit." And things of that nature. When you're young, you do a lot of stuff that's goofy and immature, and you don't know what you be doing. So I got a hold of some Kevin Klein's, and now you fast forward to like maybe 14 years later as an adult. I have some Kevin Klein. I got this Kevin Klein sweater that I wear when it gets too cold, and it's very comfortable. So this guy is very good because he knows the seasons. He knows his seasons with his eyes closed. You say winter, he'll design clothes for winter. You say spring, he'll design clothes for spring. You say summer, he'll design clothes for the summer and for the fall. You say sports, he got something for sports and fitness. You want something that's urban, he'll create something that's urban. It's like there's nothing that this guy can't do that he has already done. And the fact that they take the name Kevin Klein and they can make commercials, perfumes, colognes, jewelry, the guy just figured out what he needs and he goes out and he competes. And he's on the West Coast, he's on the East Coast. This guy's kicking ass, this guy's taking over. And he's been doing this for like 3+ decades, or you could say 4 decades. So he never shows any signs of slowing down. He's had celebrities wear his clothes. He's had professional basketball players, football players, baseball players, actors, and television and film wear his merchandise. So this guy, he's on top of the line. You say the name Kevin Klein, people know who that is. And when you go to New York Fashion Runway in New York, New York, he goes to those fashion shows. I think at that time he was competing with the late great, I think Donatella Versace. I'm not even saying his name right, but God rest his soul, rest in peace. But he took over. Like when you're talking about fashion designers, he took over. I think he was one of those guys that was already in the industry, and if anyone could kind of like beat him, it was that guy. And it was the 1990s. And he was on top of his game, and we had that tragedy because we lost him, and he was designing clothes, and Kevin Klein was like, man, this guy come out of nowhere and kick ass. And basically, he was doing all of that. On the other hand, we had another designer, American designer, who goes by the name of Tommy Hilfiger, and he started in the 1970s and the 1980s. Right off the back, he jumped right into clothes. Just jumped right into the world of clothes. Immediately started making denim jackets, t-shirts, pants, sportswear, jewelry, cologne, perfume. And when he came in, he made sure he took the concept of the colors. With Tommy Hilfigers, they were good. When I was a kid, I started wearing some Tommy Hilfiger stuff. The jeans were actually pretty good. I think he has by far the best jeans for men and for women, hands down. Tommy Hilfigers kicks ass when it comes to men and women's jeans. I wore 2 or 3 of his jeans when I was in junior high, going into high school. Of course, I grew out of them, and my mom was like, "This is real expensive." There was the Tommy Hilfiger jacket. I think we only had one Tommy Hilfiger jacket back in the day, but my mom bought that, and when our house accidentally got set on fire, it actually burned the only Tommy Hilfiger jacket that we had. I lost my jacket, and my mom gave me her jacket, and it just so happened to be a Tommy Hilfiger jacket. It never got replaced, but my point my point is I wore some stuff. Now, when it comes to Kevin Klein's, I always be looking for the colognes. Something about Kevin Klein colognes, it brings out the power and a man's confidence. It makes a man more confident in himself around beautiful, attractive women. Any Kevin Klein cologne, I'll go mess with. Every now and then, you'll see me go to a Macy's or a J.C. Penney's or a Nordstrom's, and what I'll be trying to find. 9 times out of 10, I'll be trying to find Kevin Klein cologne and body sprays. And if it wasn't for Kevin Klein making body sprays and colognes and deodorants, I don't think you will be seeing me go to those stores buying some of my other favorite brands. Like when I made my YouTube video about my favorite colognes and body sprays on my other channel, Sex Game, you probably would never see me try on different sprays. So I think when it comes to the body sprays, the colognes and the deodorants, nobody does it better than Kevin Klein. I mean, jewelry, yes, but I like his colognes, his deodorants, and the fact that that is also some part of my motivation from wanting to break into the film industry, because I always thought you had to become a model to get into the movies and the television shows. A lot of the models was, at that time in the 80s and the 90s, it was either you was going to Kevin Klein or Tommy Hilfiger to become a model. Because Tommy Hilfiger and eventually got into that industry of modeling as well. And everyone was modeling for these two fashion designers and wearing their clothing line. Mark Wahlberg would pop up, Tyrese Gibson, Usher, Genuine. All of a sudden you had R&B singers, trying out the clothes. And all of a sudden they would shout out Tommy Hilfiger or Kevin Klein in rap songs, R&B songs. They ain't even got some country singers. Like you look at somebody like Bret Michaels from back in the day come in and, you get a rap, not an R&B, but you get a rocker named Tommy Lee, and he go on stage, and when is this guy rocking? He's in there rocking some of those clothes. They bring in some of the actresses of the 80s and the 90s, and, basically they made an off-brand. Yeah, so if you look at Kevin Klein brings in those models. And that's how Mark Wahlberg got his shot into the movies. Of course, Mark Wahlberg was, he was working out so much that he was so buff that everyone was like, models ain't supposed to be buff. And Kevin Klein came out and said, well, he adds something new to our brand that ain't been done before, and guess what? It worked because everybody started taking their ass to 24-hour fitness and trying to copy the Mark Wahlberg look because he was buff and he was wearing Kevin Klein's, and same thing with the boxer briefs. If it weren't for Kevin Klein, I wouldn't be buying no boxer briefs. Like Kevin Klein's are expensive. That's like I have my brands. I am gonna make another YouTube video called the best boxer briefs for anybody that might want to see that video. Um, now who's better? I would say in the very beginning, for almost 3 decades, it's Kevin Klein was kicking ass. Now Tommy Hilfiger did come in, and it wasn't until the 80s and the 90s where he got a hold of the Coca-Cola line. Like he literally designed a whole line for Coca-Cola, and I love me some Coca-Cola. Um, Now I would say eventually Tommy Hilfiger got the shine around the 80s, the 90s. Around 2000s, I think it was his best year. The 2000s, most of the 2000s, I think Tommy Hilfiger was just dominating. And then you could see Kevin Klein having to self improve, come back, bring out some new stuff. And I would say there's a trade off because now Tommy Hilfiger is still killing with the clothes. Like it's still killing with the clothes. I still see men and women wearing the clothes. Same thing, like I said about my last video, everyone wears his clothes. Black, white, younger, old. They're in all shapes and sizes. And you go to any store, you're going to see some Tommy Hilfigers. Kevin Klein's, you're going to see them too. But you notice with the Kevin Klein's, now he's kind of, I don't want to say the guy's quit or mellowed out, but he's trying out some new stuff. And I would probably say the first 2 decades, Kevin Klein was just dominant. And then somewhere in the 2000s, there was a decline because people were now jumping to Tommy Hilfigers, but then they were jumping to Levi's. Levi's started to come back again, and you can see that decline. And you can see Kevin Klein is still strong with the television ads because models, if you want to be a model, you jump to one of these fashion designers and wear their clothing line, and then you go New York fashion one way, you see what they're doing. So who overall really is better? I'm gonna say I give the slight edge to Kevin Klein because it seemed like he could come back at any time and give you a run for your money. Tommy Hilfiger, it seems like for some reason the 2000s is his, because when he started in the 70s and the 80s, he was just getting started. The 90s, he was in the prime of his career. The 2000s, he just got a huge surge where from out of nowhere, people were just buying his clothes from out of nowhere in the 2000s. So I would probably say, even though that's the case, I'm going to give the slight edge to Kevin Klein because I do buy the Kevin Klein colognes, and Tommy Hilfiger has colognes, body sprays, and deodorants. I did try them out. The only thing with them is they're so strong and powerful that, I start sneezing and then other people cough. Whereas the Kevin Klein colognes and body sprays, you spray them once or two times, that's it. You ain't got to go two, three, four, five times. So this was just a compare and contrast video. And depending on how many of these videos I can make, if you guys like them, you thumbs up or you thumbs down the video or you go in the comment section and let me know. The next episode is probably going to end up being, it's probably going to, I think it could be JCPenney's versus Macy's, or we could do Old Navy versus the Gap. I mean, but they're both in the same stratosphere, so it'd be hard to try to do that. But I could do Old Navy and the Gap versus H&M. That would probably be the next episode. Two clothing lines versus another clothing line. So until next time, peace.